Well, I got it. The mythical bumper. It was found out the pasture with a bunch of unicorns. But it's here now. So we're going to work on our 2018 Ford Explorer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, link's up there. Oh yeah, welcome back to Ford Friday on the Ford Network. So let's see what it took to get this bumper on the truck and finish this thing up. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this annoying rattle in the back. It appears somehow the sway bar bushing got pushed out of its clamp. And now I'm going to try and figure out how to get it back in there. So we're going to put it in our press. A lot of you might consider this a vise, but it's a special Ford design tool. Just going to push the rubber mount back in there. As for whatever reason, this bracket doesn't come apart. So we'll just smash it in there. We'll use a screwdriver to pull the edges around. There we go. Ready to go back in. So we'll put a little oil on there. So we can slide the bushing up over the sway bar. And back to its home. Needs a little corrosion. And now I'll just slide it all the way back up. Now put our bolts back in. This should get rid of our clunking sound. I'll put the link back in the sway bar. I didn't feel like getting a wrench to hold it, so just kind of held it at an angle and bound it in there until the nut tightened up. Now we can put our bumper back together. If you like all the clicky bits, this bumper is for you. Lots of stuff to snap together. A couple bolts too. So we'll snap in the fog light trim. Now you can flip the bumper over. I'll put in our J-nuts so we can put in our fog lights and our wheel liners later. Now you can put in our fog lights. Tighten them down. And do the other fog light. Now the grill. Set it into place. Snap it in. Of course there's no bolts. Just satisfying clicky sounds. Now you can put the wiring harness in. Also the washer line for the front camera. Bolt in the front camera. Bolt in the temperature sensor. Snap in the rest of our wires. Snap in along the side. Plug in our fog light. Plug in our parking sensors. Plug in our other two parking sensors. Make sure the clips are fully engaged. And more parking sensors. And a wiring harness. Now you can put in the bumper absorber. Just snaps in. There's a couple brackets that go on the side. These get riveted in. So we'll just put them into place. Rivet them in. The bolts go through there, and then they have clips that hold them in temporarily until you put the bolts in. Rivet them down. Now we're going to put our spray wax in on the frame rail where we welded things up. We only welded up that end, but we did weld some other spots where the apron had pulled away from the rail. So I'm just going to coat the rail far back as I can get, so about 3 feet, which is pretty much back to the firewall. A little extra corrosion protection won't hurt. A good coating in there. There's a link down below if you want to pick some of this stuff up for your projects. And there was a little bracket on the side. Looked like it might someday start rusting, so filled that up with some wax too. I'm going to do the rail on the other side. We did a little welding on this apron where they had pulled away from the rail. We'll cover all our bases. Make sure it's better than the factory. Score one for the clean freaks. It's time to clean the bumper reinforcement that you're never going to see before I put it back together. But now I'll be able to sleep at night knowing it's nice and clean. While we're at it, we'll clean the blinds, or shutters as they like to call them. And now we can throw the bumper up. Move Mr. Spotty first. He's not going with the Ford. Just line it up. Snaps in under the headlights. Then snaps into the fender. Now we start bolting it in, put the closeout panel on top and start the screws. Now we can tighten them all down. And pull the tires off. Or hook up our washer hose to our camera washer. It also Y's off, goes to the front washers. So when you use the windshield washers, it also washes the front camera. Now we can put our bolts in for our bumper. Bolt it to the fender on the right side. Tighten them down. I'll pull the left front tire off. Now we can plug in our wiring harness to our bumper. It's for all the sensors and camera, fog lights. And now we can bolt the bumper to the fender on the left side. Oh, we'll put a little wax in that upper rail, even though we didn't work on it. We're here, why not? There's a filler panel underneath. Bolt it in. It stiffens up the bottom of the bumper a little bit. Now for everyone's favorite part, the wheel liners. These are padded on the inside and not carpeted on the outside. Take notes, GM. Throw the wheel liner in the driver's side. Snap in all of our clips. And now we can put the wheel opening moldings on. This is the right rear. You get them all lined up and snap them in. Then we'll put all our screws in. Now we'll do the driver's rear. Line them up. Snap them in. Now we'll bolt them in. Now the front ones. They go on a little bit different. They still snap in, of course. Just 2 screws up in the front. Now we'll finish putting the rest of the screws in the bottom of our bumper. Now we'll do the left front, or driver's front. Snap it all in. Put our 2 screws in. Put the rest of the bottom of the bumper in. Now we're going to ruin a perfectly good tailgate with some graffiti. Now put the gasket back underneath the hood. Just snaps in. Now it's time to charge the AC system. Hook up the high side. Hook up the low side. We'll vacuum it out. Put in the Freon we want. Set it to charge. Walk away for a little while. Now the truck's at the storage yard. We're going to pull these tires off. We're going to send them out and have them reconditioned. The wheels have some scrapes on them. We'll pop the center cap out. We'll send them out. We're going to do both of the front wheels. They'll come back balanced and everything, ready to go back on the truck. So, now they're back. They look pretty good. These wheels are polished and then just clear coated. So I pretty much sanded down the corroded parts and polished them up. And then clear coated them. So, now it's time to put them back on. Can't have a 9,000 mile truck with corroded wheels already. So now, over to the other side. So our magic brake job hammer won't work on this because it's a Ford, so we'll use a different method. So now that our world's quickest brake job is done, we'll do an oil change. But before we can do an oil change, we have to pull this air intake tube off. I guess that's what it is. Either that or it's a drip pan. Let's see if we're quicker than the afternoon crew with our oil plug. We are. We didn't wear the oil. Still not wearing any oil. Tighten up the oil filter. Gotta go get our 1-inch impact and tighten it up to Jiffy Lube specs. Put our catch pan back on. Air tube. Now we can fill it up with oil. Throw the oil cap back on. It is upside down, it's bothering me. So now that our build is all done, let's go through how long we spent building this truck. So in the first video, we got it off the trailer, and we used our temporary tie rod sleeve to get it into the shop. We put our new inner tie rod end on, discharged the AC, and started tearing it down a little bit. All that took 2 hours. In the second video, we clamped it up to the frame rack, did a little bit of our pulling, straightening, and removed the reinforcement, got everything ready to go while we waited for parts. All this took 6 hours. In video 3, we finally got our front end. We stripped it down, we welded on our reinforcement, and we let the painting gnomes do their thing. After they did, we put it all back together enough to drive it off the frame rack, unbolted it from the frame rack, and started stripping the tailgate so that the guys could do the bodywork. All that took 6 hours. In video 4, we removed the rear bumper and stripped it down so that we could put our new lower cover on and so that they could repair the upper cover. We stripped the doors down so that they could paint them and do the bodywork. Once everything was painted, we put it all back together, at least as much as we could with the parts that we had. Still, no front bumper cover at this time. All that took 5 hours. So in this video, video 5, we finally got to install our front bumper. That allowed us to put on our liners and moldings. We removed the wheels a couple hundred times, sent them out, had them reconditioned, put them back on. We did all of our maintenance and rust proofing work, and pretty much finished it up. All this took 4 hours. So, if my calculations are correct, and my calculator, I have 23 hours in this build. The body and paint guys have about another 7, for a total of 30 hours to build this truck. Now, a lot of people wonder what this would have cost if a shop were to do it, and I did write an estimate when I was looking for parts. The total estimate for everything I did, some of it caused by the auction, some of it actually from the accident, was a total of $18,281. Still not a total loss. So I can't be totally sure why they totaled it. All I know is it should have been repairable. So instead of the usual test drive, let's play with this silly auto park feature. So the truck controls the steering and directs you on controlling the shifter, brake, and the gas. If you do not go slow, you'll be making a 200-point turn in order to park it wherever it asks. If you go a little bit slower, it usually makes it in one shot. Hopefully when the machines take over, they'll all be this slow. Give us humans a fighting chance. It's fun to play with if you don't actually have anywhere to be, But let's be realistic. If you cannot park your vehicle, maybe you need to reevaluate if you should even be driving. If you're on a plane and your pilot can't land, you wouldn't want him flying, right? Okay. So, in addition to auto park, lane departure, collision avoidance, and distance sensing cruise control, it also has massaging seats. Really, Ford? What kind of drivers are you expecting? As much as I complained about how Ford did things and their backwards way of putting vehicles together, it's a pretty nice truck. It's a little noisier than the GM equivalents, the Acadias, the Traverse, and Enclave, but I'll take a little road noise over all the problems GM has with those vehicles any day. If you want a short list of some of the problems, let's start with the trans. Engine, multiple issues, power steering, airbags, electrical issues, suspension. Yeah, I'm not a fan of those, GM. So sorry, GM, you messed up. I'm now a Ford fan when it comes to this size SUV. It has its issues, every car does, and I like to complain, but I don't mind driving this thing. So the build is done. You know what it's time for. Everyone's favorite game. What's in my console? So let's find out. As usual, bolts. What else? Thought I put this on. I did. No. Not another one. Ugh. What else is in here? Sweet. I like to find that. Wait a minute. We don't need that. Here's the real money. Now I know how I'm financing the next build. Maybe I will get that supercar on my channel after all. Or just a whole lot of boring builds. I think I'll hang on to these. That looks like all that's in there. So like this video if you found it interesting. Share it if you think somebody else might. Subscribe to see what I do with all this money from selling toilet paper and Clorox wipes. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Gotta pick up the trash. So the Exploder and I were having a little disagreement on which parking spot we were going to park in. I knew which parking spot I wanted, but it didn't understand why I wanted the only spot in between two cars when the entire lot was empty. So we had to convince it that I was right. It took a little while. Then when it finally did decide that I was the boss and it was going to park where I wanted to park, the afternoon crew decided they couldn't keep quiet any longer. I don't like this car.
Ford's rock! Oh, this is gonna be bad. Oh yeah, please don't. Please don't do that.
The car finally gets it right and you guys ruin the video. Y'all just shut up now, we're gonna do it again.
This is what you get for having both of us after work. Never goes well.